AITA for telling my friend that her relationship is toxic, even though she's been asking me for advice for months. So here's the situation. I, 26F, have a friend, Jessica, 27F, who I've known for years. We met in college, and our friendship has always been close. Lately, though, things have been a little strained. Jessica has been in a relationship with her boyfriend, Ethan, 30M, for about a year now, and to be honest, I've had some concerns about it from the beginning. But things have escalated over the past few months, and I'm starting to feel like I need to step in. At first, I thought maybe I was overreacting. Jessica and Ethan seemed happy enough. But over time, I noticed that she was constantly venting about him to me. She would call me crying, telling me that Ethan was acting controlling, constantly questioning her about where she was and who she was with, and even snooping through her phone when she wasn't around. She said he would get angry when she spent time with friends or even when she went to family gatherings without him. He'd accuse her of cheating, even though she had never given him a reason to think that. But the worst part? Jessica kept going back to him every time they fought. I would tell her that his behavior was concerning and that she deserved better, but she would always tell me that I didn't understand how much she loved him or that things would get better. I've tried to be supportive, but it was getting harder and harder for me to stay neutral when I knew deep down that this relationship wasn't healthy for her. A few weeks ago, Jessica came to me again, saying that Ethan had gotten mad because she spent the night at her parents' house without him. He accused her of being distant and that she was slipping away from him. This was the last straw for me. She was crying about how she felt trapped in this relationship, but then she said she didn't know how to break up with him because she was scared of how he'd react. At this point, I couldn't just keep quiet anymore. I told her that I thought her relationship with Ethan was toxic and that it was having a negative impact on her mental health. I said that I didn't think she should have to constantly defend her actions to him, and that she deserved someone who trusted her and respected her independence. I also told her that I thought she should seriously consider breaking up with him for her own well-being, because staying in this relationship was only going to make things worse. Jessica was quiet after I said this. She didn't cry or get upset right away, but she said I was being too harsh. She told me that I didn't understand the complexities of their relationship, and that I was only seeing things from the outside. She also said that I was pushing her away and that I was being judgmental. She said she needed a friend who would support her, not someone who would tell her what to do. I thought about what she said and tried to explain that I wasn't trying to control her or tell her what to do, but that I was coming from a place of concern. I wanted her to be happy and healthy, and I just couldn't stand seeing her stuck in this unhealthy dynamic. She responded that she was just going through a rough patch and that things would improve if she and Ethan worked on their issues. Since that conversation, things have been really awkward between us. She hasn't reached out to me as much, and when she does, it feels like there's this distance between us that wasn't there before. I've tried to check in on her, but she's been distant. I've even heard from mutual friends that she's been talking about how I don't support her and that I've been judging her relationship, which isn't really how I intended it to come across. Now, I'm wondering if I overstepped by being so blunt with her. I know that relationships are complicated, and I don't want to make her feel like I'm attacking her or her boyfriend. But at the same time, I just can't stand to see her in this toxic situation. I've been trying to be a good friend, but now I'm not sure if I've done more harm than good. AITA for telling her that her relationship is toxic? Should I have kept my opinions to myself? Or did I do the right thing by being honest with her? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she uninvited me. I, 29M, have a sister, Rachel, 31F, who's getting married in a few months. We've always had a somewhat rocky relationship, mostly due to her being a bit self-absorbed and overly demanding. Growing up, she always wanted everything her way, and while I tried to be supportive, I also had my limits. Over the years, we've been through phases of being close and distant, but we've always managed to stay somewhat in touch. When Rachel got engaged, I was genuinely happy for her. At first, everything seemed fine with the wedding plans, and I assumed I'd be involved like any sibling would. But things started to get weird when she began asking for money. At first, it was casual like, "Oh, the wedding's going to be so expensive. I might need some help with this or that." I didn't think much of it at the time. I make a decent living, and I'm happy to help out my family when I can. Then came the requests for specific amounts. She started asking for contributions for specific things like the catering, the venue, and the photographer. I've always been someone who prefers to stick to a budget, so I wasn't too comfortable with the amount she was asking for, but I still agreed to contribute because she's my sister, and I wanted her to have the wedding of her dreams. Things started to get even more complicated when Rachel announced that she had a set number of guests she wanted to invite, and that list didn't include me. At first, I thought it was a joke. I mean, I'm her brother. But when I asked her about it, she told me she was serious. Apparently, she felt like I wouldn't be a positive presence at her wedding because of some past family drama we've had, which I thought was mostly resolved, and she didn't want to risk negativity on her big day. I was pretty hurt by this. I'd always been there for her, even when she didn't deserve it. I've helped her with various things over the years, and now she was telling me she didn't want me there? I tried to talk to her about it, but she got defensive and insisted that I just didn't understand, and that it was nothing personal, just what she wanted for her wedding day. After a couple of days of trying to process it, I came to the decision that I wasn't going to fund her wedding anymore. It wasn't just the uninviting part that got to me. It was the fact that she was treating me like an afterthought and then still expected me to throw money at her celebration. So, I sent her a message explaining that I wouldn't be contributing any more money to her wedding. I told her that I was hurt by her decision to uninvite me, and that it didn't feel right to be expected to pay for something I wouldn't even be a part of. Rachel immediately went off on me. She called me selfish and said that I was punishing her for having boundaries. She accused me of trying to ruin her special day and said that she didn't care about the money, but that I was making a big deal out of nothing. I tried to explain that it wasn't about the money, but about the principle of it. If she didn't want me there, then I wasn't going to help fund the event. She told me that I was making everything about myself, and that I was being a drama queen. Her fiancé also chimed in, saying that I should respect her decision because it was her wedding and I should be adult enough to move past our family issues for the sake of her happiness. Since then, I've gotten messages from my parents, extended family, and even some of Rachel's friends, all telling me I'm in the wrong. They say I should just let it go, that it's her wedding, and that I'm being petty. Some of them even went as far as to say that I should just show up at the wedding, give her the money I had promised, and let things blow over. But I can't shake the feeling that she's taking advantage of me. She's not just asking for money. She's expecting me to put up with being treated like an afterthought, like I don't even matter in her life, and then still financially support her big day. Honestly, I'm not sure I want to be a part of a wedding that feels more like a transaction than a celebration of love. So, here I am, feeling like I'm in the middle of a moral dilemma. I'm not sure if I'm overreacting or if I'm actually standing up for myself. I'm torn between trying to salvage my relationship with Rachel or just walking away from this whole situation. I've already decided not to pay, but now I'm questioning if I've gone too far. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she uninvited me? AITA for refusing to help my sister after she manipulated me into buying her a car, and now she's demanding I pay for repairs? So, this all started about 6 months ago. My sister, Becca, 30, and I, 27M, have always had a fairly close relationship, though she's always been the type to manipulate people to get what she wants. I've always tried to be there for her, but recently, I'm beginning to feel like I've been taken advantage of for far too long. Becca had a car that was falling apart. It was a 2004 Honda Civic, and while I'm sure it still ran fine at first, the engine was starting to make weird noises, the air conditioning wasn't working, and there was a ton of rust on the body. She started complaining about it to me more often, saying she couldn't afford a new car, but needed one for work. She would call me, text me, post about it on social media, and ask our parents for help. They refused because they didn't have the money either, and honestly, they were tired of her asking for everything. After about a month of constant badgering, Becca finally came to me with a solution. She told me that I should buy her a car as a gift. She was like, I can't keep driving this old thing. I need something reliable. I know you're doing well financially, so it'll be easy for you to just get me something decent. You can afford it. At first, I thought she was joking, but she kept bringing it up, and it wasn't just once or twice. It was almost every time we spoke. She'd drop hints like, I can't believe you haven't helped me out yet. I really need a car. Why don't you want to help me? I'd do it for you. And then she'd always end with something guilt-trippy, like, I'm not asking for anything extravagant. I just need a reliable car to get to work and take care of my life. I'm not an idiot. I know when someone is guilt-tripping me, but at the same time, I've always been a bit of a pushover, especially when it comes to family. I've always helped her out with stuff. Small things like lending money, babysitting her kids, or helping her move. So, after weeks of her talking about it nonstop, I caved. I went out and bought her a 2016 Toyota Corolla. It wasn't brand new, but it was in good condition and had low mileage. The total came to about $15,000, which I had saved up for the past couple of years. It was a pretty big chunk of money, but I thought it would be fine. I'd help her out, and she'd be happy. She wouldn't have to worry about her car anymore, and I could finally stop hearing about it. I told Becca I'd take care of it, and she was ecstatic. I thought the drama would be over, but that was just the beginning. A couple of weeks after I bought the car, Becca started complaining about how the new car was too expensive to maintain. She said the monthly payments were too high, even though I had paid the full amount up front. Then she said the car needed routine maintenance that she couldn't afford, like an oil change and new tires. I told her I'd help with the first couple of things, but that she should start taking more responsibility for the car. I mean, I had just given her a nearly new car, and it wasn't my job to cover every little expense for her. Becca didn't take it well. She started calling me crying, saying things like, you're the one who bought the car, so you need to help me pay for everything. It's not fair that I'm stuck with this burden all by myself. She also kept hinting that I should be paying for things like car insurance, which was an additional $150 per month, and gas money when she'd take long trips. At this point, I was starting to feel like I had made a huge mistake. I wasn't sure why I was helping her with all of this in the first place. It didn't feel like she was grateful, just entitled. But I didn't want to get into a huge argument, so I started sending her money every month to cover the car insurance and gas. I even helped her with the oil change and tire replacement when they came due. But after a few more months, things escalated. Becca's car started having engine issues. She claimed it was making a weird noise when she accelerated and that the air conditioning was blowing warm air. She took it to a shop, and they said it needed a new transmission, which was going to cost another $3,000. She called me up, acting frantic, and said, I can't afford that. What am I supposed to do? You have to help me. You bought me the car, and now it's broken. You're responsible for it, right? I immediately said no. I told her that I had already given her a good car, and that I wasn't going to keep paying for everything. I said that the car was hers now, and that if something went wrong, she would have to handle it. She didn't like that answer and started crying again. She accused me of being selfish, saying I didn't care about her, and that she was struggling because of me. She even said that I had ruined her life by giving her a car she couldn't afford to maintain. I told her that I wasn't responsible for paying for repairs on a car I had already gifted her, and that I didn't have any obligation to fix something that was broken through regular use. She didn't take it well, and our relationship has been pretty strained ever since. She started calling me heartless and cheap, and when I refused to pay for the repairs, she told me that I should have never bought her the car if I wasn't willing to help her maintain it. Now, I feel like I'm being unfairly blamed for something I didn't do. I gave her a nice car, and I've helped her with a lot of other things in the past. I'm not her bank account, and I'm getting tired of her constantly expecting me to take care of all of her problems. But I also feel bad that I can't just help her out once in a while without it turning into an endless cycle of demands. So, AITA for refusing to help her with the car repairs after I already gave her a new car and helped with other expenses. AITA for going against my family's wishes and not letting my sister-in-law move in with us after she lost her job. So a bit of background before I dive in. I, 29M, live with my wife, Sarah, 28F, in a modest 2-bedroom house we've had for about 3 years. We don't have kids yet, but we're planning to in the next couple of years, so we've been saving and trying to make things work. It's not much, but it's our home, and we're comfortable. Now, my sister-in-law, Becky, 32F, lost her job about 6 months ago due to downsizing at her company. She had been living on her own for years, but since losing her job, she hasn't been able to make rent. Becky is not exactly the most responsible person when it comes to money. Over the years, she's had issues with budgeting, and she's never been able to keep a job for more than a year or two at a time. She's also got a history of moving back and forth between different family members' homes when things go wrong. This is where the problem started. A few weeks ago, Becky called me in a panic. She told me she couldn't afford to live in her apartment anymore and asked if she could move in with us for a few months while she figures things out. I immediately said no, and I'll explain why in a second, but first, let me just say this. I know she's going through a tough time, but she's not the best house guest. Over the years, we've had her crash at our place a few times, and it's never gone well. She's messy, has no concept of boundaries, and tends to overstay her welcome. It's always uncomfortable, and it puts a strain on me and Sarah. Anyway, after I told her no, I assumed that was the end of it, but my wife, Sarah, is a lot more empathetic than I am. She immediately wanted to help Becky, and after some back and forth, she said she'd support Becky staying with us temporarily. She kept saying things like, she's family, we can't turn her away, and she needs our help right now. I get where Sarah is coming from, but I don't think it's as simple as that. The issue is, I've seen this pattern before. Becky takes advantage of any kindness offered to her, and before long, it becomes an indefinite arrangement. I didn't want to open that door, especially since we have our own plans and future to consider. I tried explaining to Sarah that it would only be temporary for Becky if she came to stay with us, but in my experience, temporary always turns into months, and then it becomes permanent. I also reminded Sarah that we don't have the space for this. We only have 2 bedrooms, and while we're both okay with guests, having someone live with us long-term would be a huge inconvenience. It's not just a matter of space, but also of maintaining our privacy and routine. Despite all this, Sarah insisted that we at least give it a shot. I held firm on my stance, and after a lot of arguing, I finally said that I wasn't comfortable with Becky moving in. I told Sarah that I'd be willing to help her in other ways, like financially. I could give her some money to help her out for a couple of months, or help her look for a new job, but I just didn't think it was a good idea for Becky to live with us. The whole situation became a lot more tense after that. Sarah started calling me selfish and uncaring. She said I was only thinking about myself, and that I didn't understand how hard things were for Becky. She kept saying that Becky didn't have anyone else to turn to, and if we didn't help her, we were turning our backs on family. She even went as far as saying that if I wasn't willing to support her decision, it could affect our marriage. Now, I'm not saying I don't care about Becky, but I just don't want to be a doormat for her, and I feel like my decision is rooted in healthy boundaries. I don't want to enable her to keep making poor life decisions by letting her move in, and I feel like it's unfair to expect us to bear the brunt of her financial mistakes. I also don't want to feel trapped in my own home by someone who doesn't respect our space and privacy. Things got worse when my in-laws got involved. They called me and chewed me out, telling me I was being unreasonable and that I needed to step up for family. I tried explaining my position, but my mother-in-law started crying, saying she didn't understand why I couldn't just help out Becky like everyone else in the family had. I felt cornered and accused, and Sarah wasn't helping the situation. In fact, she said she was disappointed in me for not supporting her in this, and we haven't been able to get past it. At this point, I'm really torn. I don't think I'm in the wrong for wanting to protect our space, and I don't think I'm wrong for saying no to Becky moving in. But at the same time, I feel guilty because I know how much Sarah wants to help her sister. I love Sarah, but I also feel like she's putting her sister's needs ahead of our relationship and our future plans. To make matters more complicated, Becky just texted me saying she had nowhere else to go, and if we didn't help, she might end up on the streets. I'm feeling more pressure now than ever, but I still don't think moving her in is the right answer. I'm at a crossroads, and I honestly don't know if I'm being too stubborn or if I'm justified in wanting to protect my home and my relationship. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law move in with us? Or should I have just put my foot down for the sake of family? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. AITA for asking my sister to leave my wedding after she demanded to be the maid of honor, even though I already chose someone else? I'm a 29-year-old woman and I recently got married to my amazing husband, Josh. The wedding was supposed to be a joyous occasion, but things became a bit messy, and I'm still feeling conflicted about what went down. For some context, I have a younger sister, Sarah, who is 24. We've always had a pretty good relationship, but like any siblings, we have our differences. Sarah can be a bit self-centered at times, and has always been the type to make everything about her. She's also not the most reliable person, and while I love her, I knew I couldn't count on her for certain things. When I got engaged, I immediately knew who I wanted as my maid of honor, my best friend, Claire. Claire and I have been through thick and thin together. We met in college and have always supported each other. We've had some tough times, and Claire has been by my side through some of the hardest things I've gone through. So, there was no question in my mind about who should stand beside me on my wedding day. I had told Sarah early on that I was going to ask Claire to be my maid of honor, and while she seemed a little disappointed, I didn't think much of it. She didn't make a big deal about it, so I thought it was settled. Sarah was still going to be a bridesmaid, which I thought would be fair enough. The issue started about 3 months before the wedding. I was busy with planning, and Sarah started to get more vocal about how she felt like she deserved to be the maid of honor instead of Claire. She told me that I should honor her by making her my maid of honor because we're family and it only makes sense. I was caught off guard by the request, especially since she knew I had already made my decision. I tried to be as gentle as possible, but I explained that I had already chosen Claire for a reason. I told her that I valued her as a bridesmaid and that she had a very important role, but I felt like Claire was the right choice for me. Sarah didn't take it well. She got really upset, and I could tell she was hurt, but she tried to hide it. After that, things started to get tense. She would make passive-aggressive comments about Claire, like saying things like, "Well, I'm sure Claire will be able to handle everything, since she's the maid of honor, right?" Or, "It must be nice to have someone so dependable." These comments started to get under my skin. I started to feel like I was walking on eggshells around her. A few weeks later, Sarah came to me and demanded that I change my mind. She said that if I didn't make her the maid of honor, she wasn't sure she wanted to be in the wedding at all. She even suggested that if she wasn't the maid of honor, she wouldn't be able to fully enjoy being a bridesmaid. I was honestly shocked. I had no idea it was that big of a deal to her. I told Sarah that I didn't want her to feel pressured into being in the wedding if it was going to cause tension, but I also told her that I wasn't going to change my decision. She started crying and said that I was being selfish and wasn't thinking about her feelings. She told me that I didn't care about her enough to make her feel special on my big day. That really stung, because I had always tried to make her feel loved and valued. The next few days were a blur. Sarah started spreading word to family members that she wasn't going to be in the wedding unless she was the maid of honor. Some of our extended family members reached out to me, asking if I could just make her the maid of honor to avoid drama, or suggesting that it's only one day and Sarah deserves it. I felt torn. Part of me wanted to just give in and avoid the drama, but then I reminded myself that I needed to stay firm in my decision. About 2 weeks before the wedding, Sarah gave me an ultimatum. She told me that if I didn't make her the maid of honor, she wasn't coming at all. At this point, I was feeling like I had already put in so much effort to keep the peace, and I was done. I told her that if she didn't want to be part of the wedding unless she had the title, then she didn't have to come. That's when things escalated. Sarah sent me a message saying she wouldn't be attending, and I didn't hear from her until the morning of the wedding. She showed up uninvited and demanded to be let in. I was already in the middle of getting ready, and the day was already stressful enough. When I saw her standing in the doorway of the bridal suite, I was honestly just so frustrated. I told her to leave, that it was too late to come in and cause drama. The confrontation got pretty heated. She started yelling, saying I was a terrible sister and that I had ruined our relationship over something so trivial. She told me I was ruining her life by not giving her the attention she deserved. At this point, I was done. I told her that if she wasn't willing to be supportive, then she wasn't welcome at my wedding and she needed to leave. I asked my cousin, who was nearby, to escort her out of the venue. After that, I tried to go back to the ceremony, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had done something wrong. The whole thing cast a shadow over my wedding day. I tried to focus on enjoying the moment with my husband and friends, but I kept thinking about how my sister had stormed out of my wedding. Later, I found out that Sarah had been telling people I was heartless and that I had kicked her out of my wedding. Some family members are on her side, saying I should have just let her be the maid of honor to avoid drama, while others are supportive of my decision. Now, I'm wondering if I made a mistake. I understand she was hurt, but was I wrong to stand my ground? Was I too harsh by asking her to leave the wedding when she showed up uninvited? I don't want to lose my sister over this, but I also feel like I did what was best for me on my wedding day. AITA, I, 27M, have a sister, Emily, 29F, who is getting married in a few months. We're close, but we've had our share of disagreements over the years. I've always supported her, but lately, things have been more tense between us because of her wedding plans. Here's the situation. Emily and her fiancé, John, 31M, initially booked a small, intimate wedding at a lovely venue on the outskirts of town. The plan was to keep it under 100 guests, which felt manageable for everyone involved. Emily's always been more of a small and intimate person, so I thought it was going to be a low-key affair. However, a few months ago, Emily came to me and asked if I could help pay for the wedding. I'm not rich by any means, but I do pretty well in my career as a software engineer, and I have some savings. I said I would help out as much as I could. I didn't offer a specific amount, but I made it clear that I would be willing to chip in for things like the catering or venue cost if needed. Now, about a month ago, Emily and John made a major decision. They decided to change the venue to a much larger, high-end place that was almost double the cost of the original one. I was really surprised by the change because Emily had been adamant about not wanting to have a big wedding. She said it was all about the vibe, and the new venue was much grander, with a capacity for 300 people. I asked her why they changed it, and Emily told me that her future in-laws were very insistent on having a proper wedding with all of their extended family there, and that the new venue was the only place that could accommodate everyone. I didn't say much at the time, but I felt uneasy about it. The new venue was extravagant, and it seemed like they were trying to please everyone but themselves. A week later, Emily told me the total cost of the wedding, which was nearly triple the original budget. She then asked if I could contribute a significant amount of money, about $15,000. I was floored. This was way more than I had planned on helping with, and it was also more than I felt comfortable giving, even if I was in a good financial position. I told her that I couldn't commit to that amount, and that I had initially agreed to help, but this new venue and guest list were way beyond what I had imagined. She became upset, saying that she had already committed to the new venue and it was too late to go back. She told me I was being unsupportive and that this was her dream wedding, so I should help make it happen. I tried to explain that I could still help, but it wouldn't be that much, and she seemed to brush that off. Over the next couple of weeks, there were multiple back and forths about the money. Every time I said no to a larger contribution, Emily would guilt-trip me, saying things like, "I can't believe you're not supporting me at this time," and "what kind of brother doesn't help his sister with her wedding?" Meanwhile, John, her fiancé, seemed to stay out of it entirely, and her parents were on her side, saying that the wedding was a once-in-a-lifetime event, and I should just pitch in to make it perfect. At some point, I decided I was done. I made it clear to Emily that I was not going to give more than $5,000, which was a far cry from the $15,000 she wanted, but it was the maximum I was comfortable with. She got furious. She told me that if I didn't help cover the full costs, I wasn't allowed to come to the wedding at all. This was when I started to feel like things were really spiraling out of control. I knew that Emily and I would probably never be able to go back to the relationship we once had if I didn't help her, but I had to draw the line somewhere. A week before the wedding, she sent me a message saying that she was going to remove me from the guest list because I hadn't contributed enough. I was shocked. I immediately called her to try to talk it out, but she wouldn't answer. In the end, I stuck to my guns and refused to contribute any more than I had already promised. The wedding was last weekend, and I wasn't invited. I found out through mutual friends that it was a beautiful event, but it didn't make me feel any better. Now, Emily hasn't spoken to me in over a week. I've tried reaching out, but she won't respond. Our parents are also disappointed in me, saying that I should have just sucked it up and given her what she wanted because it was her special day. I feel like I did the right thing, but I'm also heartbroken that my sister has completely cut me out over money. I've been thinking about whether I made a huge mistake, and I'm torn because part of me wants to fix things, but part of me feels like I was being manipulated and taken advantage of. So, AITA for refusing to pay the exorbitant wedding costs and sticking to my budget. AITA for not allowing my best friend to attend my wedding after she tried to ruin my relationship. I, 28F, have been friends with Lily, 30F, for about 15 years. We've been through a lot together, and for the most part, our friendship has been solid. But recently, things have taken a weird turn, and I'm not sure if I'm overreacting or if I'm justified in what I did. It all started about a year ago. I got engaged to my now fiancé, Daniel, 32M, and I was so excited to start planning the wedding. Daniel and I had been together for 3 years at the time, and everything was going perfectly. However, Lily was always a bit quirky when it came to relationships. She was always the single one in our group of friends, and while I never judged her for it, I did notice that she sometimes seemed to struggle with being happy for others, especially when it came to relationships. At first, I thought I was just being paranoid, but as the months went on, I started noticing small, weird things Lily would say about Daniel. Nothing overtly mean, just passive-aggressive remarks. She'd call him too perfect, implying that something must be wrong with him, or say that no one can live up to their partner's expectations when we'd talk about wedding plans. She also started making comments about how she'd never marry anyone who pressured her into an expensive wedding, which wasn't true at all, but okay. I tried to brush it off, but when I asked her directly if there was something wrong, she denied it and said I was being too sensitive. I figured I was overthinking things and continued with my wedding planning. But then things took a turn for the worse. About 4 months ago, Lily and Daniel got into a huge argument at a group dinner. Everyone was a little tipsy, and the conversation drifted toward relationships. Somehow, it ended up being about me and Daniel. Lily made a snide remark about how marriage is a trap, and how she didn't understand why I was so eager to get stuck with someone when I was doing just fine on my own. Daniel, who is usually laid back, got really frustrated and tried to steer the conversation in a more positive direction. But Lily just kept pushing, saying that people like me lose themselves in relationships, and that I was probably already regretting getting engaged. I thought the situation was just a bit of drunken rambling, but the next day, Lily texted me an apology. She said she didn't mean to make things weird, but that I should be careful because marriage changes everything, and that she just wanted me to think about it more. I didn't really know how to respond to that. It felt like she was trying to plant seeds of doubt in my mind about something I'd been certain of for a long time. But I gave her the benefit of the doubt and moved on, not thinking much of it at the time. Fast forward a few more months, and I started getting weird vibes from Lily again. She'd tell me how I deserved someone better than Daniel, or how she couldn't understand why I was going through with a wedding that was so traditional and old-fashioned. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that Lily had been subtly undermining my relationship for months. I finally confronted her, and it didn't go well. I told her that her comments were making me uncomfortable, and I felt like she was trying to sabotage my happiness. She was defensive and said I was taking everything too personally, and that I shouldn't be so fragile about it. She said that she was just trying to look out for me, and that no one else would say it, but she was being honest. She insisted that she just wanted to make sure I wasn't rushing into something I would regret. It felt like a huge betrayal, honestly. The confrontation left me hurt, but I told her I needed some space to think things through. I didn't speak to her for a couple of weeks after that, and I honestly considered whether I should just distance myself from her altogether. But then Lily reached out and apologized again. She said she didn't mean to hurt me, that she was just scared I was making a mistake and that she didn't know how to express it. I accepted her apology, but the damage was done. I started feeling more and more uncomfortable with her presence around my wedding planning, especially since Daniel was noticing how much tension there was between us. Now, here's where things get tricky. A few weeks ago, I sent out my wedding invitations. I carefully chose the people who I wanted to stand by me on my special day. And while I've always been close to Lily, I decided not to invite her. I just couldn't get past the feeling that she didn't genuinely support me or my relationship with Daniel. I didn't want to invite someone to my wedding who seemed to actively try to tear it down. When I told her that I wasn't inviting her to the wedding, she was shocked. She said that it was a slap in the face, and that we had been friends for too long for me to make that decision without even talking to her about it first. I explained that I couldn't have someone at my wedding who didn't support my relationship, and that I needed people who would be excited and happy for me. She accused me of overreacting and claimed that I was being unfair because she was just trying to protect me. Our conversation ended in a huge argument. She said I was throwing away a friendship over a silly misunderstanding and that I was acting like she was some kind of villain. She said I was being dramatic and that she had every right to voice her opinions. Now, I feel really torn. On one hand, I've known Lily forever, and I don't want to throw away our entire friendship. But on the other hand, I feel like she's been undermining my relationship for so long that it would be wrong to invite her to my wedding, where I should be surrounded by people who have my back. AITA for not inviting her after everything that's happened? Am I being too harsh? Or am I justified in protecting my relationship and my wedding day? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she disinvited me over a misunderstanding? So, here's the backstory. I, 28M, have an older sister, Sarah, 33F. Growing up, we were close, but not super close in the best friends kind of way. More like normal siblings who fought occasionally but had each other's backs when it mattered. Our relationship had its ups and downs, especially as we got older and our lives took different paths. I moved to a different city for work, and she stayed close to our parents. Sarah recently got engaged to Tom, 35M, a guy she's been with for about 2 years. I met him a few times, and he seems like a nice enough guy. Not really my type to hang out with, but I don't dislike him. The wedding planning was a big deal for Sarah, obviously. She's always dreamed of a big wedding, and I could tell she was stressing over every little detail. So, a couple of months ago, Sarah called me and asked if I could be her man of honor. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. It's a little unusual for a brother to take on that role, but she explained that she didn't have a best friend or anyone else she felt comfortable asking, and she wanted me to be there to support her. I thought it was a little odd, but it was her big day, so I agreed without hesitation. Fast forward a few weeks, and I'm getting into the whole planning process with Sarah. She starts sending me lists of things to do, like helping with invites, researching vendors, and even going dress shopping with her. I was a little thrown off by how involved she wanted me to be, but again, it's her wedding, and I didn't want to let her down. One of the things Sarah asked me to do was help with picking out the wedding attire for the bridal party. I'm not exactly a fashion expert, but I agreed. She gave me some guidelines, including the color scheme and style of dresses she wanted for the bridesmaids. Everything was going fine until I mentioned that the color she picked, a very light lavender, might not be the most flattering on all the bridesmaids, especially since some of them are darker skinned. I didn't mean to insult anyone. I wasn't criticizing her choice, just offering a suggestion because I thought it might be worth considering other options to make sure everyone felt good in their outfits. I even told her I would support whatever she picked, but it seemed like a good opportunity to discuss it. That's when things started to go downhill. Sarah got super defensive and told me I was being insensitive and judgmental. I tried to explain that I was just trying to be helpful, but she wouldn't hear it. She kept insisting that I was too focused on appearances and that it was her day, so I should just stay out of it. I let it go, thinking it was a one-time thing. But then, a few days later, Sarah called me and said she needed to talk. She told me that she was reconsidering my role as man of honor and that I had overstepped by commenting on the wedding details. At first, I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. She said that she couldn't trust me to respect her vision for the wedding, and that if I couldn't stay out of the details, she would prefer I not attend the wedding at all. I was completely blindsided. I wasn't trying to control the wedding or upset her. I was trying to be supportive, but now it seemed like she was punishing me for caring. I asked her if she was serious about uninviting me, and she said she was. She even suggested that I could still attend as a guest if I wanted, but I would no longer have any role in the ceremony. I tried to reason with her, but it was clear she had already made up her mind. After this conversation, I felt hurt and betrayed. I've always been there for Sarah, and now it felt like she was throwing me aside over one minor disagreement. I didn't want to cause drama, but I also didn't want to just accept being treated like this. So, I decided to stick to my guns. I told her that if I wasn't going to be her man of honor, then I wouldn't attend the wedding at all. She was shocked and begged me to change my mind, but I stood firm. I didn't want to be in a situation where I felt unwelcome or unappreciated. Well, fast forward to now. The wedding is in a couple of weeks, and Sarah has been texting me nonstop, apologizing for how she reacted and telling me I was overreacting. She says she's hurt that I won't be there for her on her big day and that I've made it all about me. Our parents are also putting pressure on me to go, saying that it's just a wedding and I shouldn't make a big deal out of it. But I feel like this is about more than just the wedding. It's about respect, and I don't want to let her walk all over me just because it's her wedding day. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she disinvited me over a misunderstanding. I don't think I'm being unreasonable, but everyone else seems to think I'm making a scene over something small. What do you think? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. I, 32F, am married to my husband, Mike, 34M, and we have 2 kids, a 6-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. Mike's sister, Carrie, 29F, has been part of our lives for years, but things between us have always been a little tense. She and my brother, Tom, 30M, were married for about 5 years before their divorce. The main reason for their split was Carrie's infidelity, which really hurt Tom, as she cheated on him multiple times during their marriage. The final straw was when she got caught in a pretty humiliating situation with a guy from her work, and Tom just couldn't move past it. Since the divorce, Carrie's life has been a bit of a roller coaster. She bounced between different relationships and jobs, often moving back in with her parents or friends when things went south. She never really took responsibility for her actions, always making excuses for why she messed up or blaming others, including Tom, for driving her to cheat because he was too busy with his career and didn't give her the attention she needed. For the past year, Carrie has been living on her own, but recently things took a turn for the worse. She lost her job due to some performance issues and has been struggling to make ends meet. To make matters worse, her last relationship ended badly, and she was apparently left heartbroken and alone in the world. Carrie reached out to Mike and me a couple of weeks ago, asking if she could move in with us for a while. She said she was trying to get her life back together and needed a place to stay. Her exact words were, "I'm so tired of being on my own. I messed up so much, and I want to get back on track. I really need your help." Mike and I have always been a little wary of Carrie because of her past, but he's a soft-hearted guy and felt bad for her. At first, he seemed inclined to say yes, but I was immediately uncomfortable with the idea. First, I didn't think it was a good idea to let her into our home when she hadn't really taken responsibility for her actions, particularly the way she had treated my brother. Second, I didn't want to disrupt our family dynamic. We already have young kids, and the last thing I wanted was to invite someone with a history of instability into our home, especially someone who could potentially bring drama and tension. I brought these concerns up to Mike, and we had a long conversation about it. I told him I didn't think it was healthy for us or for the kids to have Carrie living with us, given her past behavior and the fact that she hasn't really shown any signs of changing. I mentioned how her cheating caused a lot of damage to Tom and how she hadn't even apologized to him or taken real accountability. I also expressed my concern that her presence might create unnecessary stress in our home and affect our relationship. Mike was upset by my stance and said that we should be more supportive of family, especially since she was struggling. He pointed out that we were lucky to be in a stable position, and maybe helping her out could give her the chance to turn things around. He also said that her living with us would only be temporary, and that we could set boundaries to make sure things didn't get too chaotic. I still wasn't comfortable with the idea, and I told him I felt like it was a huge risk. I told him that if we allowed Carrie to live with us, I would be the one who would have to handle most of the day-to-day logistics, keeping the house clean, making sure the kids are fed and cared for, dealing with any tension or issues that might arise, and I wasn't sure I was ready to take that on. I also didn't want to be put in the position of having to constantly defend her to the kids or make excuses for her behavior. In the end, Mike and I couldn't come to an agreement, and I decided to talk to Carrie myself. I told her that I didn't feel comfortable with her moving in and explained my reasons in a calm but firm way. I told her I didn't think it was healthy for her or for our family, and that I didn't think it was the right time for us to take her in. Carrie was furious. She accused me of being cold and unsympathetic and said I was punishing her for things that happened in her past. She even went so far as to say that I was just trying to make her feel like a failure, when all she needed was a fresh start. She told me that Mike and I were being selfish and that we were turning our backs on family in her time of need. She also said that if I really cared about her and wanted to be a good sister-in-law, I would support her. After that conversation, things got worse. Carrie went to Mike and told him that I was too hard on her and that I was being unreasonable. She also painted me as someone who didn't care about family or her struggles, which I think really hurt Mike. He still believes that we should help her, and he has been pushing me to reconsider. Now, Mike and I are at an impasse. He's frustrated with me for not being more understanding, and I'm frustrated with him for not seeing my point of view. My relationship with Carrie is definitely strained, and I'm not sure if I've made the right decision, but I feel like I've done what's best for my family. I don't think I can just overlook the past, especially since she hasn't shown any real growth or accountability. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law live with us after everything that's happened? Am I being too harsh, or am I right to protect my family? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she tried to steal my wedding dress? So, here's the situation. I, 27F, was supposed to get married to my fiancé, Mark 30M, this past summer, but the whole thing fell apart in the most bizarre way imaginable. Let me start with some context. My sister, Emma, 25F, and I have always had a bit of a complicated relationship. We grew up in a pretty competitive household, and my parents always seem to favor Emma a little more. She's always been the one they dote on, the one they gush about, while I've always been a bit of an afterthought. It's not that I've had a terrible childhood or anything, but I've always had to work harder to get the same recognition. Still, we were close enough. That was until the wedding planning started. Mark and I got engaged 2 years ago, and everything was going smoothly, at least on my end. I spent months picking out the perfect dress, a beautiful custom design I'd been dreaming about for years. It was everything I wanted, elegant, romantic, and a little vintage. I was so excited to finally wear it. Fast forward to 6 months before the wedding, and Emma tells me that she's met someone. Not unusual, right? She's been through a few boyfriends, so we weren't thinking much of it. But then, she starts talking about how she's planning her own wedding. I was happy for her, maybe a little surprised that she was moving so fast, but whatever, good for her. A couple months later, Emma came over to my house to catch up. We were sitting on the couch, chatting about her wedding plans. She casually mentioned that she had found a dress she loved, but she wasn't entirely sure about it. At this point, I was fully immersed in planning my own wedding, so I didn't think much of it. Then, out of nowhere, she asked me, "Hey, do you think I could borrow your wedding dress for my wedding?" I blinked a few times, thinking I heard wrong. What? No, Emma. Absolutely not. This dress is for my wedding. It's something I've dreamed about for years. She gave me this weird, pouty look and then said, "But you're not even getting married for another 6 months. What's the harm in me using it for my wedding? It would save me so much money. And it's literally the exact style I want." I was floored. I told her there was no way in hell I'd let her wear my dress. It wasn't just about the money or the time. This dress was part of my big day, something that I had picked out for me. The thought of her walking down the aisle, and it was not only disrespectful to me, but it was also really upsetting. It wasn't like I had any issues with her wedding or the idea of her getting married. It was just that this dress meant something deeply personal to me. She looked really hurt by my response and tried to argue that I was being selfish and that I should just be happy for her. I told her I wasn't trying to be unsupportive, but my dress was something I had been imagining for years, and I didn't want anyone else wearing it, least of all her. The conversation ended kind of awkwardly. She didn't speak to me much after that, and I thought maybe it was just a misunderstanding. I assumed she'd drop it, but no, Emma did not drop it. Over the next few months, she kept bringing it up. Every time I'd visit my parents, she'd start in with the same line. "You know, it would be really amazing if you'd let me borrow your dress. I'm on a budget, and it would mean so much to me." I would explain again that it wasn't going to happen, but every time I said no, she'd act like I was the one being unreasonable. It got to the point where I started dreading seeing her. Mark even started getting annoyed with me for spending so much emotional energy on someone who wasn't respecting my boundaries. I tried to explain the situation to my parents, but they just brushed it off and said things like, "Emma's just excited. She didn't mean to upset you." My mom suggested I just let it go because it was just a dress. But I couldn't let it go. This wasn't about a dress. It was about respect. It was about her completely disregarding my feelings and treating something I cared about like it was up for grabs. Finally, the wedding day came. I was already a little stressed out with last-minute details, but I was determined to enjoy the day. My dress arrived at the venue, wrapped up, pristine, and ready to go. I had my moment, and it was everything I dreamed of. Mark and I got married, and the day was perfect. But then the real drama started. I found out that Emma had shown up at my wedding uninvited. She'd come to watch the ceremony, but made sure to let everyone know that she was there to support me while also getting inspiration for her own wedding. I didn't see her at first, but apparently she was circling around, taking pictures, and making comments about the decorations and, of course, my dress. When she finally approached me, she looked me up and down and said, "You look beautiful, but it's a shame I couldn't wear the dress I wanted. I was really hoping you'd change your mind." I was furious. I asked her to leave. She argued with me for a bit, but eventually she did. I felt so betrayed. She had come to my wedding, uninvited, and then openly disrespected me by bringing up the dress again. It felt like a violation of my boundaries. After the wedding, I decided I couldn't keep doing this with her. I told my parents I was done with the constant manipulation, done with the emotional blackmail, done with everything. My parents weren't happy, of course, and tried to convince me that I was overreacting. They said it was just a small thing in the grand scheme of things and that I should forgive her. But I couldn't. I couldn't just let it go. My sister had crossed a line, and I couldn't pretend like everything was fine when it wasn't. Now Emma's furious with me. She's calling me selfish and petty, and she's refused to speak to me. She's even said she'll never forgive me for ruining her happiness. My parents are still trying to mediate, but I'm honestly not sure what they expect me to do. I know I could have handled the situation better, but at the end of the day, I felt like I was being asked to sacrifice something incredibly personal to me for the sake of someone else's wedding. And that just didn't feel fair. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she tried to steal my wedding dress. AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law move in after she got kicked out of her apartment. I, 28F, have always had a decent relationship with my in-laws. My husband, 31M, let's call him Mark, is very close with his family, especially his older sister, Lily, 33F. Lily has always been a bit of a free spirit, always hopping between jobs and apartments. It's never bothered me too much since she's always seemed to find a way to get by. But recently, things took a turn. A few months ago, Lily was evicted from her apartment. She told us that it was due to her landlord raising the rent, and she was unable to pay. We didn't think much of it at first, but then she started reaching out to Mark more frequently, claiming she was struggling to find a new place. Mark, being the good brother that he is, immediately started offering to help her out. One evening, Mark came home and told me that Lily was looking for a place to stay and that she wanted to move in with us temporarily. We don't have a huge house, just a 2-bedroom apartment, and while we do have a spare room, it's more of an office than an actual guest bedroom. I told Mark that it wouldn't be ideal since I work from home, and I need the space to be quiet and functional. Plus, it would be awkward having someone else living with us long-term, especially considering that Lily isn't exactly the most tidy or responsible person. Mark seemed a little disappointed, but understood. He said he would help her look for other options and make sure she was okay. I thought that would be the end of it, but a few days later, Lily called me directly, asking if she could crash at our place for a few weeks until she found a new apartment. She insisted that it would be a short stay, and she promised to be low maintenance and stay out of the way. I reiterated what I had told Mark. It just wouldn't work. I also explained that I'm not comfortable with someone living here who isn't paying rent or contributing to utilities. Lily started getting a little upset, saying that she couldn't afford to pay for an Airbnb or find a temporary rental. She asked me how I could be so cold-hearted, considering she was family and in need. I felt bad, but I stood my ground and said no. The conversation ended with her saying she'd just figure something out. A couple of days later, Mark came to me and said that Lily was really upset and that I should reconsider. He told me that it wasn't like she was asking for a permanent place to stay, just a few weeks at most. I felt guilty, but I reminded him that I have my boundaries. I work long hours and need my space, especially since our apartment isn't very big. He got a little defensive, but we agreed to talk about it later. Fast forward to a week later, and Lily shows up at our door unannounced, bags in hand. Mark was at work, and I was home trying to finish a project for work. I opened the door, and Lily immediately started unloading her things into the hallway, saying she had no other place to go. I asked her what was going on, and she explained that she hadn't been able to find anywhere else and really needed to stay with us, even if it was for just a little while. I told her that I wasn't comfortable with her just showing up without warning and that we had already talked about this. She seemed to disregard my concerns and insisted that it was just temporary. I asked her to leave, but she refused, saying that she didn't have anywhere else to go. It felt like an ultimatum, and I didn't know how to handle it. I called Mark, but of course he was in the middle of work, and I didn't want to interrupt him too much. After a tense back and forth, I finally told Lily that if she didn't leave, I'd call the cops. She seemed shocked by my ultimatum, but eventually grabbed her bags and stormed off, telling me that I'd regret treating her this way. When Mark came home, I told him what happened, and he was immediately upset with me. He said that I could have handled it better, that Lily was in a really difficult spot and didn't have anyone else. He accused me of being too rigid and not having enough compassion for family. He told me that I could have at least allowed her to stay for a little while until she found a place, but I had turned her away without offering any real help. I felt torn. On one hand, I don't want to be the bad guy, but on the other hand, I just couldn't handle having someone else in our space when we didn't even have the room for it. I don't think I should have to sacrifice my comfort and space just because someone is family and in need. I've worked hard to make our home a place where I can be productive and relaxed, and having Lily there would have disrupted that. Mark and I have been arguing about this ever since, and I feel like I'm the one being made out to be the villain. I've been trying to make him understand my perspective, but he's really upset, and he thinks I'm being too harsh. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law move in after she was kicked out of her apartment? I just don't think I should have to let someone stay here if it's going to make me uncomfortable, especially when I already set boundaries and was clear about my reasons. But I also don't want to damage my relationship with Mark. Any advice or perspective would be appreciated. AITA for refusing to pay my sister's hospital bills after she gave birth, and then calling her ungrateful for expecting me to? I, 29M, have a sister, 27F, named Emily. We've always had a bit of a complicated relationship. Growing up, she was the golden child, always got the best grades, never caused trouble, and our parents adored her for it. I was the troublemaker, the one who didn't meet expectations and often felt overshadowed by her. But despite that, we never really had a huge falling out. We both went our separate ways after high school, and though we didn't talk much, we got along well enough when we did. Last year, Emily found out she was pregnant. I'll admit, I was a little surprised. Emily's always been a bit of a perfectionist, and I didn't think she was even close to being ready for the responsibility of motherhood. But I didn't say anything. I figured it was her life, her choice. She ended up giving birth to a baby girl a few months ago, and that's when things started to go sideways. When Emily gave birth, it was a complicated delivery, and she ended up with some medical issues that kept her in the hospital for almost 2 weeks. During that time, I was at work and barely had any free time, but Emily reached out to me, asking if I could help her with some of her hospital bills. At first, I thought it was just a casual ask, and I figured she'd figure it out. But she kept calling and texting me, saying things were getting worse, and the hospital bills were piling up. I'm not wealthy by any means. I'm working full-time, paying off student loans, and I live paycheck to paycheck. But I felt bad for her, so I agreed to help. However, when I went to the hospital to talk to her and give her the money, she asked me for more, an amount that would have put a huge dent in my savings. I told her I couldn't afford it, and that's when things got tense. She was upset, telling me that I was her only family in town, and if I didn't help her, she didn't know what she would do. I could see she was stressed, but I also knew I couldn't just throw money at every problem, especially when I didn't have that much to begin with. So I told her that I could help out with some of the smaller bills, but I wouldn't be able to cover everything. Emily didn't take that well at all. She started yelling at me, saying I was selfish and that if I really cared about her and my niece, I'd help her without question. I tried to explain my situation, but she wasn't having it. She accused me of not caring about her or her baby, and it was honestly the first time I had ever heard her speak to me like that. We've had our disagreements in the past, but this was something else entirely. After that conversation, I thought we had reached some sort of agreement. I helped her pay a portion of the bills, but I made it clear that I couldn't do more. I didn't hear from her for a few days, but then I started getting messages from our parents. Apparently, Emily had told them I was refusing to help her, and now they were furious with me. They said that I had to step up and be there for my sister, especially with a newborn, and that I shouldn't be so stingy. I explained everything to our parents, the financial situation, my limitations, and how I had already helped her as much as I could. But they didn't seem to care. They kept telling me that family is everything, and that I should do whatever it takes to support my sister. My parents have always been very supportive of Emily, and it's like they completely overlooked the fact that I had my own life and responsibilities. Over the next few weeks, Emily continued to reach out, but now it wasn't just about the bills. She started asking for money for baby supplies, like clothes and formula. She even sent me links to things she needed for the baby, and it became clear she expected me to buy everything. I told her once again that I couldn't keep giving her money. I already felt like I was being taken advantage of, but she kept pushing, saying that if I really cared about her and my niece, I would just help without question. At this point, I snapped. I sent her a message saying that I was done. I told her I'd helped her as much as I could, and that I had my own life to manage. I reminded her that she's an adult now and needs to figure things out on her own. I also pointed out that she was being really ungrateful, considering everything I had already done. I said that it wasn't fair for her to keep asking for more, especially when she knew how tight my finances were. I told her that I couldn't keep letting her guilt trip me into doing things I wasn't comfortable with. My message to her wasn't harsh, but it was firm. The response I got from her, however, was anything but calm. She called me selfish and said that I was abandoning her when she needed me most. She said that family helps each other out, and that my refusal to help was proof that I didn't actually care about her. She even went so far as to say that she regretted telling me about the pregnancy in the first place, because it just made me treat her like a burden. That really hurt, but it also made me feel like I had done the right thing. I've always had to take care of my own life, and I couldn't let her guilt me into taking on more than I could handle. Our parents called me again, this time even more upset, telling me that I was being unreasonable. They said that family is supposed to help each other, and that I was letting my sister down when she needed me most. They implied that I should be happy to help her, since she was now a mother. At this point, I'm feeling exhausted and frustrated. I've already helped her as much as I can. I don't think it's fair for her to expect more, especially when she's been so demanding and ungrateful. I feel like she's using her baby as a way to manipulate me into giving her more money, and I'm starting to resent her for it. I love my niece, but I also have my own life and responsibilities, and I can't keep putting myself in a position where I'm constantly drained and taken advantage of. So now, I'm wondering, AITA for refusing to pay all of my sister's hospital bills and baby-related expenses, and for telling her that she needs to stop expecting me to bail her out? Am I wrong for thinking that she's being unreasonable and ungrateful? Or should I just suck it up and keep giving her money because she's my sister and has a baby? AITA for telling my fiancé that I don't want to invite his brother to our wedding after what happened at the engagement party. I, 28F, have been with my fiancé, Alex, 29M, for almost 4 years. We got engaged about 6 months ago, and I've been excited to start planning our wedding. We both come from different backgrounds. My family is pretty traditional, and we're all very close-knit, while Alex's family is a little more, chaotic. They don't have the same kind of closeness that my family does, and honestly, some of his relatives are a little, difficult. One person who really stands out is his brother, Greg, 32M. Greg has always been a bit of a wild card. He's loud, doesn't really think before speaking, and has a habit of making things awkward in social situations. I've always been polite to him, but I don't really enjoy spending time with him. Alex and Greg have a complicated relationship too. They've had their share of falling outs over the years, though they've worked through it and are generally on decent terms now. The issue came up during our engagement party. We had a small get-together with both of our families, a few close friends, and some extended family. It was a pretty chill affair, not huge, but special to us. The night started well, but it didn't take long for Greg to make things uncomfortable. At one point, he got up to make a speech. I had no idea this was happening. I thought we were just having a low-key evening. But Greg decided to stand up and start talking about how he thought Alex was settling by getting engaged to me. He didn't say it in a joking or a light-hearted way. It was pretty pointed, and everyone in the room felt it. He went on about how Alex could do better, how he shouldn't rush into anything, and that I didn't seem like his type. It felt like he was trying to make a big scene. I was mortified. My family, who had been incredibly excited about the engagement, was awkwardly shifting in their seats. Alex was clearly uncomfortable too, but he didn't really say anything at first. He just kind of shrugged it off, but I could see how much it was bothering him. I thought maybe it was a one-off, a weird comment, but Greg didn't stop there. Later in the evening, he kept making passive-aggressive remarks about the wedding plans. He criticized the venue we picked, said the colors I chose were tacky, and even asked if we were going to have a real wedding or just a budget one. It was so uncomfortable that at one point, my mom pulled me aside and told me she didn't know if she could handle more of Greg's comments. The last straw came when Greg tried to playfully grab my fiancé's phone during a game and then proceeded to call me a control freak for apparently dictating everything about the wedding. He made it seem like I was some sort of bridezilla, which is the opposite of how I've been throughout this whole process. I've kept everything low-key, listening to Alex and his input, and trying to make decisions that would make both of us happy. But Greg had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. At this point, I was really upset. I didn't want Greg anywhere near our wedding, especially if he was going to act like this again. So, after the party, I brought it up to Alex. I told him that I didn't feel comfortable having Greg at the wedding if he was going to keep behaving like that. I told him it felt like Greg was actively trying to make things about him, and I didn't want that kind of negativity at what was supposed to be one of the happiest days of our lives. Alex was taken aback, and at first, he tried to defend his brother. He said that Greg's comments were just his way of joking, and that I was overreacting by taking it all so seriously. He even said that Greg was probably just nervous about the wedding and that he'd calm down closer to the date. I told Alex that I didn't feel like it was my responsibility to make Greg feel comfortable, especially when he was making me feel uncomfortable. I said I wasn't asking Alex to choose between me and his brother, but I did think that Greg's behavior had crossed a line. We argued for a bit, and Alex seemed to go back and forth on the idea. Eventually, he said he'd talk to Greg and ask him to tone it down for the wedding. But honestly, I'm not sure if I believe that would happen. Greg has always been this way, and I'm not sure what would change for one day. Plus, I don't want to feel like I'm constantly walking on eggshells around him, especially on such an important day. I've been really upset about the whole thing. I don't want to cause drama in Alex's family, but I also don't want Greg to ruin our wedding with his comments and behavior. I feel like I'm being put in a position where I have to choose between my own comfort and maintaining peace in Alex's family. But at the same time, I don't think it's unreasonable for me to ask for a peaceful and respectful celebration. I've told Alex that if Greg is going to attend, I'd like him to promise that Greg will behave and not make any negative comments. But I'm starting to feel like maybe I should just stand my ground and tell Alex that I don't want Greg there at all. But I'm also aware that this might cause even more tension between Alex and his brother, and I don't want to start a fight that might affect our relationship long term. So, AITA for saying I don't want Greg at our wedding. I feel like I'm justified, but I also don't want to seem unreasonable or like I'm asking too much of Alex. Am I being too harsh on his brother? So, a little context first. I'm a 28-year-old woman, and I have a sister, Lila, who's 26. We've always had a good relationship, though we've had our fair share of sibling squabbles over the years, but nothing major. I have always been supportive of her, especially when it came to her relationships. But lately, things have taken a weird turn, and I feel like I'm being unfairly treated, and I don't know if I'm the one wrong here. Lila recently got engaged to a guy named Jake, who's 29. He's fine. I don't dislike him, but I've always had a bit of a gut feeling about him that I couldn't fully shake. They've been together for about 3 years, and honestly, I haven't had a chance to get to know him well. They live in another city, so I don't see them as often as I would like. But I've met Jake a few times during visits, and every time, I've found something a little off about him. It's hard to explain, but he just gives me this vibe like he's constantly trying too hard to be liked and to fit in. The real issue came when I started hearing things from mutual friends and other family members. I don't want to sound like I'm gossiping, but a few people mentioned that Jake might not be as trustworthy as he presents himself to be. A couple of close friends of mine who have met him said they were uncomfortable with some of his behaviors and actions. They didn't go into specifics, but the whole thing had me questioning whether or not my sister was seeing something in him that others weren't. I tried to voice my concerns to Lila. I didn't want to be overbearing, but I did want to make sure she wasn't rushing into something with someone who might not have her best interests at heart. I didn't accuse Jake of anything. I just told her that I'd heard some things from friends and family that made me worried about him, and I suggested that she take her time and make sure she was really sure. I thought that would be a reasonable conversation. Instead, it turned into a massive argument. Lila got incredibly defensive and shut me down immediately. She accused me of trying to sabotage her happiness and said I was being overdramatic. I explained that I wasn't trying to do that at all, but I wanted her to be aware of what others were saying. She basically told me that if I didn't support her relationship, then I could stay out of her life. I told her I loved her and just wanted what was best for her, but she wasn't having it. After that conversation, we barely spoke for a couple of months. I gave her space and hoped she would come around, but she didn't. Then, out of the blue, I received a wedding invitation in the mail. I thought, okay, maybe we're starting to move past this. I was hesitant, but I wanted to support her. I RSVP'd yes, and I even went out of my way to buy her a nice gift and plan for the travel arrangements. A week later, I got another phone call from Lila. She sounded really upset and said, I need to talk to you about something. I had no idea what it was about, but I knew it wasn't going to be good. When I picked up, she told me that she and Jake had discussed things, and they didn't think it was a good idea for me to come to the wedding after all. She said they felt uncomfortable with the things I had said about Jake, and that it was creating too much tension. She told me that it was better if I just stayed home. I was floored. I tried to keep my voice calm, but I was shaking. I asked her why she would disinvite me after everything we'd been through, and she told me that she didn't want her special day ruined by someone who was so negative. She made it clear that it wasn't personal, but that I wasn't welcome because of how I had treated Jake. At this point, I lost it. I told her that I wasn't going to beg her to change her mind. I wasn't going to apologize for being concerned about her, and I certainly wasn't going to apologize for my feelings toward her fiancé. I told her if she wanted to marry someone who didn't even respect her own family, then that was on her, but I wasn't going to pretend like everything was fine. She hung up on me, and we haven't spoken since. My parents, who have been somewhat neutral in all of this, are now telling me that I should just apologize and go to the wedding because it would be the right thing to do. But I feel like I've already been disrespected. They think I'm being stubborn, but I feel like I've done nothing wrong. I've been nothing but supportive, and all I did was voice some concerns that I genuinely believed were valid. Now, I'm torn. I'm upset that my sister would choose a man over me, and I don't know if I should just let it go and attend the wedding or stick to my guns and stay home. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she disinvited me over my concerns about her fiancé? AITA for ruining my friend's wedding after she stole my wedding dress? Okay, this is a long one, so bear with me. I, 28F, was supposed to get married in August, but my fiancé, Mark, 32M, and I had to cancel our wedding. We'd been engaged for a little over a year, and the planning had been going well. I had already ordered my wedding dress, and it was my dream dress. I've been looking for the perfect one for months, and when I found it, it was everything I could have imagined. I ordered it custom-made, and it was ready just a month before the wedding. It was beautiful. Lace, satin, delicate beading, and a long train. Mark was super supportive and excited, and we were both really looking forward to the day. Then, something unexpected happened. My best friend, Sarah, 29F, who had been by my side through everything, started acting weird. I noticed she was being distant, not really engaging in conversations, and kind of disappearing for long stretches of time. At first, I thought she was stressed about her own life. She had recently moved to a new apartment, so I didn't think much of it. But as the wedding day got closer, she started showing up less and less to our planning meetings, and even missed a few fittings for the bridal party. A few days before my wedding, I was at home, going through some last-minute things, and I noticed Sarah had texted me to say she'd be stopping by to pick something up. I was surprised because she hadn't been around much lately, but I figured she was coming by to help with some last-minute tasks. She said she was just picking up a small favor, which I didn't think twice about. When she arrived, she seemed a little off. She was acting jittery, but again, I didn't think much of it at first. She asked if she could see my wedding dress, and I was excited to show her. I took it out of the closet, and she gushed over it, saying how stunning it was, how it looked like it belonged in a fairy tale. I was flattered, and we spent a few minutes talking about how I couldn't wait to wear it. Then she asked if she could try it on. Now, let me explain. We've been best friends for years, and I trusted her completely. But the thought of her trying on my dress didn't sit well with me. I mean, I'd spent so long finding it, and it was incredibly expensive. It was the one thing that was just mine for the wedding, and I wanted it to stay that way. I said no, politely but firmly, and told her that it was a once-in-a-lifetime dress, and I wanted to keep it as a surprise for Mark. She seemed disappointed, but didn't press the issue. The next day, Mark and I had a huge argument. I found out that Sarah had actually been calling him, texting him, and even FaceTiming him behind my back for the past few weeks. He was uncomfortable with it and didn't know what to make of it. He thought it was a little strange, but at first, he hadn't said anything because he didn't want to cause drama. I confronted Sarah about it, and she denied everything. She seemed confused and claimed it was all innocent and that I was overreacting. I brushed it off, figuring that maybe I was being a little paranoid. The wedding day arrived, and everything was going smoothly. The ceremony was beautiful, and I had tears in my eyes as I walked down the aisle. But when I got to the reception, everything changed. My bridesmaids and I were getting ready to take some photos when I noticed that Sarah was acting a little off. She was standing near the door to the bridal suite, looking nervous. I didn't think much of it until one of the other bridesmaids came to me and said, "Hey, you might want to check on Sarah. She's acting weird, and I think she's doing something with your dress." At that point, I got this sinking feeling in my stomach. I ran to the bridal suite and found Sarah not only in my wedding dress, but wearing it in front of everyone. She was standing in front of the full-length mirror, admiring herself as if she owned it. My jaw dropped. I was speechless. I couldn't even comprehend what I was seeing. Before I could say anything, she turned around and said, "Look, I know this is a bit weird, but I couldn't help myself. I just had to try it on. It's so beautiful, and I thought I'd look amazing in it too." I was furious. I told her to take it off immediately, but she didn't move. She just stood there, acting as though it was no big deal. I started yelling, asking her what the hell was going on. She finally took off the dress, but not before saying, "I don't understand why you're so upset. It's just a dress." I felt like I was going to lose it. In that moment, I knew something deeper was going on. I asked her point blank why she had been so weird for weeks, why she'd been texting Mark, and why she tried to sabotage my wedding. She denied it all. She told me I was being dramatic, that it was just a simple mistake, and that I needed to calm down. I stormed out of the room and told Mark what happened. We both agreed that I couldn't go through with the wedding. It wasn't just about the dress. It was about everything that had happened. The trust was broken, and I didn't want to marry someone who had done this to me. I called the whole thing off. I told the guests the wedding was canceled, and that was that. It was over. I couldn't even look at Sarah. She tried to apologize, but I couldn't hear her out. Mark and I left the venue, and I didn't speak to Sarah again for days. Now, here I am, struggling with whether or not I overreacted. I mean, it's just a dress, right? But it wasn't just about the dress. It was the betrayal. It was her crossing boundaries, lying to me, and disrespecting something that meant a lot to me. Was I wrong to cancel the wedding over this? Did I overreact? AITA? AITA for kicking out my best friend after she insulted my fiancé at our engagement party? So, here's the situation. I, 29F, have been with my fiancé, 31M, Lucas, for about 3 years now. We've had a pretty solid relationship. We complement each other well, have similar values, and just generally get along great. He's my best friend and the person I want to spend my life with. A couple of weeks ago, Lucas and I hosted an engagement party at our house. It was more of a casual get-together with close family and friends. Everyone was having a good time. There was food, drinks, and music. I invited my best friend, Claire, 28F, who I've known since high school. We've been through a lot together, and I consider her one of the most important people in my life. She's always been there for me, and I thought it would be a fun night for us to celebrate. Now, Claire has never been the biggest fan of Lucas. She's never been rude about him, but she's made a few offhand comments over the years. She's never outright said anything bad about him, but I've always gotten the sense that she doesn't fully approve of him. For example, she's mentioned that she thought I could do better or that Lucas isn't as fun as some of my other exes, but I always brushed it off. I figured she was just being overprotective, like a lot of friends can be. But this night, it all came to a head. The night started off well. We were all laughing and catching up, but after a few drinks, things started to take a turn. Claire and Lucas were having a conversation, and at one point, Claire started to make some snide remarks. She was asking Lucas how he felt about me settling down with him, and if he thought he could keep up with someone like me. The vibe was definitely getting awkward, but I thought maybe she was just drunk and being playful. Then, out of nowhere, Claire said something that caught everyone off guard. She looked at Lucas and said, "Are you sure you want to marry her? You know she'll just end up finding someone better eventually. It's like she's doing you a favor." I was shocked. I tried to laugh it off, but Lucas didn't look amused. He just kind of smiled awkwardly, and I could tell he was uncomfortable. I immediately stepped in and said, "Claire, that's not funny. Why would you say something like that?" But she just shrugged it off, claiming she was joking and that I needed to relax. I could feel my blood starting to boil, but I didn't want to make a scene at our engagement party. So I tried to steer the conversation elsewhere. But Claire kept pushing it, making passive-aggressive comments like, "I guess you're happy with your second choice guy, and I'm just surprised you found someone who puts up with you." At that point, I couldn't take it anymore. I was furious. Not only was she insulting Lucas, but she was completely disrespecting me and my decision to marry him. I snapped and told her to stop talking. When she didn't, I told her in front of everyone that if she couldn't be respectful, she needed to leave. Claire got defensive and said I was overreacting. She accused me of ruining the mood and being a bridezilla. The whole room went silent, and all eyes were on us. It was awkward and tense, but I told her, "You've crossed a line. If you can't support me or my relationship, then I don't think we can keep having this conversation." I asked her to leave, and she did, but not without telling me that I was acting like a child, and that this is why people like Lucas never last with me. The rest of the night was uncomfortable, but we managed to salvage it. Lucas and I ended up having a quiet conversation later, and while he was upset by Claire's comments, he told me he was glad I stood up for him. I also got a few messages from some friends who were at the party, and they all seemed to agree that Claire's behavior was out of line. But then I started to feel conflicted. I've known Claire for years, and I value our friendship. She's one of the closest people to me, and I've always supported her through thick and thin. But I'm also hurt by how she treated Lucas, and the fact that she disrespected our relationship so openly, especially at such a special moment. I don't want to lose my best friend, but I also don't want someone in my life who can't be happy for me or who feels the need to tear my fiancé down. I've been thinking a lot about what happened, and I'm torn. I've tried reaching out to Claire a few times, but she's been radio silent. A mutual friend told me that Claire is really hurt and upset that I asked her to leave, and she feels like I chose Lucas over her. Honestly, I don't even know if I can forgive her for what she said, or if our friendship can be the same after this. So, AITA for kicking Claire out of my engagement party after she insulted my fiancé. Or should I have let it slide? I'm trying to figure out if I overreacted or if I had every right to stand up for my relationship. Would love to hear other perspectives on this. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.